Hello everyone! Today we'll be taking a look at the Gamesir Tarantula Pro. This controller has an innovative feature where the layout of the ABXY buttons changes in real time, and I can't wait to check it out. Let's start with the traditional unboxing and check all of the contents in the package. This time the manual is huge, and this is probably the biggest manual I've seen from Gamesir so far. Ergonomically, the Tarantula Pro is very similar to a Dualshock 4. But it has trigger modifiers and 2 back buttons. The face buttons are membrane buttons. They have a good travel distance and won't sink flat with the shell. The C shortcut buttons have mouse switches, and the analog sticks have a metal shaft and anti-friction rings. Unfortunately, there is no internal restriction gate here. Under the controller, you have the pairing button, and the Dpad has mechanical switches. On the top, this plastic piece works as 3 different buttons. The shutter buttons are very responsive, and you have Hall effect analog triggers with a switch to modify them. Flipping the switch changes it to a digital button with a clicky mouse switch. On the top, the USB-C slot is a bit recessed, and on the back buttons we have a locking mechanism, similar to the Gamesir G7 SE. But this time when you lock the button will sync flush with the shell, which is very nice. And when you unlock it, it pops back off. The back buttons are also very responsive and easy to press. The grips are entirely made of plastic. And here we have a function button. These pads under it are for the charging dock. The controller is very comfortable and the back buttons are at your fingertips. However, the shortcuts on the top are a bit hard to press. You really have to reach out to hit them. On the other hand, the C buttons are very easy to reach and press. However, some gamers use a different kind of grip to play games. This is called a claw grip. And with this kind of grip, the buttons on the top are more accessible and easy to press. And you can also access the C buttons like this. The back buttons are accessible too. When you turn it on, it adjusts the layout of the buttons depending on the mode you're in. If you change it to Xbox mode, the button layout will follow. Holding the M button and moving the right stick up or down lets you change the brightness of the LEDs. And moving to the left and right lets you change the light modes. And the left stick is used to change colors. The dock has the Gamesir logo on the bottom, and it is a bit fragile. You don't want to drop it on the ground. The bottom is transparent, and there's two ports here. One USB-A to plug the dongle, and one USB-C to connect to the computer. It works as a pass-through port. You can leave the dongle in the port, and whenever you connect to PC, you will have a better connection. When you connect the controller to the dock, the LEDs will show the charging progress. Here's how it looks with the lights off. When the charge is close to finish, the lights will turn green. And they turn off when fully charged. If you pick up the controller, it will turn on automatically. This controller has a Dualshock 4 mode, but it's not compatible with PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 consoles. It can be paired, but after a while the PlayStation will see that it's not a licensed controller and will cut off the connection. It is compatible with the Nintendo Switch and it has a wake-up function. It has motion controls, and it also has NFC to read amiibos. And the rumble motors are HD rumble. The back buttons are easy to remap on the go. And you can record macros too. The two C buttons on the right are mapped to the start button by default. You can remap it to any other button or macro you want. But when you delete the remapping, it defaults back to the start button, and there's no way to leave it blank. There is a turbo mode with 3 different speeds. Testing on PC, the analog sticks has no dead zones in the center. There's no cardinal snapping, and the circularity is perfect. The sticks also has a super high resolution, registering around 600 steps. But when testing the Dpad, I noticed that the diagonals are very hard to press. It barely gets registered when moving in a circle. You can get the input to register, but you have to apply extra force. If you don't put enough force, it will skip the diagonals entirely. It's the same behavior present on the Gamesir G8 Galileo, and it's a bit sad that they still didn't fix this. For comparison, here's the Mechanic G5 Pro V2. The diagonals are much easier to press without having to push the button harder. Here's the behavior of the triggers. And the capture button works on PC too. It is also compatible with the Gamesir app for smartphones. In the app, you can test the buttons, customize the dead zones for the sticks, change the button layout, and configure the shortcuts in real time. You can customize the RGB lights, and for the buttons, you can change the colors too. You can change colors for each individual button. There is also an app for PC where you can basically change the same settings of the smartphone app. But on the PC app, you can map mouse buttons, keyboard buttons, and even multimedia shortcuts. Moving to the teardown, you'll have to remove these rubber protections for the screws. With the 4 screws removed, you can unclip the back shell. Here's the mechanism for the back buttons. There is also a small rubber protection to dampen the noise of the triggers. Here's the back side of the motherboard. And this here is the motor that changes the button layout. Here's the battery capacity. It's 1200 milliamps. And this is the mechanism for the triggers. Also, we can already see that there is a metal pivot for the triggers. And the front side of the motherboard looks very nice. This is the Gamesir proprietary TMR stick, very similar to the K-Silver modules. The button layout is printed on this plastic piece, you cannot unpeel it. And the buttons are pushed through these small plastic tabs. Here's a demonstration of the switching mechanism. These switches here tells the controller which layout you're using. The Dpad has mechanical buttons under the rubber membrane. and checking it, I didn't see any problems. In fact, when you put the D-pad over it, the diagonals are very easy to press. Then I found out what the problem is. In the front shell, there are these small plastic tabs in the diagonal directions. These tabs restrict the movement of the D-pad, making it harder to press the diagonals, as when you push on one side, the other side has to lift up a bit. I could try to cut these tabs, but from my experience, this is not a good idea. It would create an extra space between the D-pad and the rubber membranes. I tried doing this with the Big One Rainbow 2 Pro, and I got a wobbly D-pad. The shortcut buttons on the top are on a separate board. And the face buttons has a magnifying effect. When reassembling the controller, I noticed that if you leave these two screws unscrewed, it will make the diagonals easier to press. But it's inconsistent as it only improves 3 of the diagonals, leaving the top right corner still hard to press. This is a tolerance issue and it's clearly a design flaw. Finally, checking the Gamepad LA website for latency results, the minimum latency is about 7.58 milliseconds. Not the fastest in the market, but not bad either. On my final thoughts, the Tarantula Pro is almost the perfect controller. It has almost everything you would want to. Good ergonomics, it's perfect for claw grip, has the best analog stick resolution I've seen so far, Hall effect triggers with trigger modifiers, HD rumble and NFC readers for the Switch, 8 additional shortcuts, and the back buttons has that locking mechanism which is awesome. The only con is with the D-pad. The diagonals are very hard to press and inconsistent, which makes this controller bad for fighting games and 2D games. And it's a big disappointment because with a D-pad on the top, this controller would be a perfect option for playing retro games. I only recommend it if you want to play FPS or other kind of games. And that's it for today's video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.